Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Agent Advantage. We are joined today by my buddy Ryan Smith. Ryan, what is up?
How are you today?
I am doing great. How are you?
I can't complain. Other than the rain, doing all right.
Uh, all right, that's true. That's true. But you know, we need the rain to appreciate the sunshine.
Absolutely.
All right, so Ryan, tell everybody a little bit about your background in real estate, real quickly, and then we'll dig into some juicy nuggets.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a licensed agent. I've been in the business for about 13 years now. I think one of the big things for me is I've moved a bunch of times. So I started my career. I literally moved 3.5 hours away from where I grew up, knew nobody. I was getting away from a crappy relationship, started over in a whole new area, did that for a couple of years, moved again for another female, which is a kind of trend in my life, started over again, and then moved again after that. And so for me, I've had to learn to really grow my business over and over and over again and really refocus on what works, what doesn't work. And I started doing coaching and training based on some of the things that I've learned. And that's kind of evolved into my Launch Your Farm program, which is where I teach agents how to do geographic farming and really how to become a master of the community and give back to the area they're serving.
So let's talk about that directly now. Let's just jump right in, okay?
Yeah.
How was that born? Where did that come from?
It was kind of a long chain of events that kind of all came together. So the program and the show came from my own experiences. It came from coaching other agents as well, helping them with their businesses and their farms. And then I also had a show about 6 or 7 years ago. I had a podcast called The Niche Agent. So it stemmed kind of, that was the kind of roots of where it started from. I knew I wanted to get into training and coaching agents because my passion was really in helping share my knowledge and the things that I love to learn about with other agents. And then it kind of evolved. I put things on the shelf and came back to things. And then I had just doing my own farm, launching that and doing well with that. And then I had a business partnership. We split ways. He kept the farm. And then I was like, oh, I kept coming back to this. I want to teach agents how to farm because I knew there was a need for it. And I knew there was a need for new ways of doing farming and really farming in today's modern society because most of the information and training is out of date in my opinion and just doesn't work the way it used to. So I kind of evolved into that. And then I was like, all right, let's do this. I was going to launch just before COVID hit and then COVID hit and I was like, oh crap. And then I was like, all right, it's better now than ever. So I jumped in and started that last year.
All right, so let's talk about geographic farming, and let's start with the traditional approaches or the ways that you think maybe aren't as effective.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things my mantras that I teach is that farming isn't postcards and door knocking. And I've talked to hundreds of agents, coached tons of agents, interviewed hundreds of agents, and the first thing that most agents think of when they think of farming is postcards and door knocking. That's what's been taught. It's send out a flyer X amount of times per month or X amount of times per week and just keep blitzing an area and that's what's going to work. And the reality is those can work, but it doesn't work as effectively as it used to work. And same with the door knocking. And COVID is a perfect example in that you could have went out and door knocked and that was your main source of farming. And then now you can't do that because of COVID and it's hard to do open houses and it's hard to do some of those things that really worked well. So the postcards is that kind of staple piece of farming. And in my experience and my belief is that postcards can work with the right approach, but most agents don't have the right approach when it comes to postcards. And then it's the other things I think where you can really take it to the next level when it comes to your farm.
So I think it really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, postcards and door knocking or cold calling in a particular farm area, I mean, it works, but it's just one piece of that overall
100%.
puzzle.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you got to hit it from other angles.
Yep. One of the things I teach is I call it strategy stacking, where you layer in the strategies that you use, and that's how you're going to get more of a response. Because again, if going back to when farming was big back in the day, that you didn't have very many ways to reach people. So you really had a phone, you had a newspaper, you had some park benches, maybe a billboard, and then you had direct mail, and that was really how people reached people when it came to marketing. So you could only kind of catch so many different ways. Nowadays, there are so many things fighting for our attention. Everyone in the household has a phone, a tablet, a computer, a TV, all these things that are fighting for our attention. So we have to be able to get in front of people and reach them in ways other than just a postcard. And as a result of that, we have to change how we hit people. I would say hit, it sounds wrong. It's how we reach people. You have to change your approaches because our attention is so divided now, and we're very limited. You used to have 3 TV channels. That's it. Now there's 300 channels. Some places have 3,000 channels. So our attention is very fragmented. So we're having to reach people in different ways and more often and in multiple ways to make sure that you get the same results.
So, what do you think is sort of the underlying base of if somebody wants to create a farm? And we'll talk about how to maybe go about that and
Yeah.
how to choose a farm. But once they've chosen it for a second, what should they do first in terms of does that postcard thing? I mean, it's a combination really of, and we've talked about this at length, but obviously the people here haven't been privy to those conversations. Um, it's a combination of sweat equity and check equity, right? And
Yep.
and what
100%.
do you have at that moment really will dictate the way that you approach it, I think.
Yep. Exactly. So I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of farming, and that's what I call CPR, and it's community, positioning, and relationships. And no matter what strategy you do, the kind of fundamental core of what farming is it's about a community that you're serving, whether that's a small little pocket, whether that's your whole town, whether that's a subset of that community. You have to put the community first. So you have to learn to really be the person like the go-to person in the community and build a relationship in the community. And the next part is the P, which is positioning. And you need to learn to position yourself as the expert and the ambassador. And when you do both of those things, you're going to elevate your status in the community. And then you then build long-term relationships. So whether you throw in postcards, door knocking, open houses, all these different strategies, they all come back to that CPR. As far as what you do when you get started, one of the things I always tell agents is you got to start with your budget. And like you said, sweat equity or check equity, it's going to be time and or money. If you're new, if you don't have a lot of money in the bank, you're going to have to do things that are going to be energy and time specific, that you're going to spend more time getting it started. The trick is to find that balance as you go forward. A lot of time agents come out of the gate, they drop a lot of money, they drop a lot of time, and then they get busy with it, and then they stop doing the things they were doing, they stop spending the money on the things that they were doing, and then all of a sudden their business dries up. So you have to figure out what you're going to commit to. And I always tell people you should commit to at least a year and then really lay out that plan. And that's where I would figure out is what's your budget and then what strategies you're going to start to implement first.
So there are people that I've spoken with over the last several years that have said if they were, and these are people that are generally stepped away from production, they're in
Mm-hmm.
management or whatever. If they were to go back into selling again, they would do geographic farming. They would take out a loan and do
Yeah.
geographic farming on a very large scale. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if you have experience with farming and you have a strong understanding of marketing and systems and tools, you can go bigger. But the average agent coming into this doesn't understand it. And then most agents fail because they try to go too big. And I always say it's better to scale up than it is to have to scale back. And I'd rather see you start with a smaller area, use that as kind of your testing grounds and your laboratory where you're figuring out things, you're figuring out what marketing works, you're getting your branding in place, you're getting all those kind of resources created, and then you can start scaling up. If you go too big, you're going to blow through your budget, you're going to blow through your time, and you're not going to get the results. And you're a small fish in a big pond, and I'd rather see the big fish in a small pond, and then take another big fish and put it in another pond, and another big fish in another small pond, and you'll see better results that way.
So let's go back and talk about, when you're choosing your farm, then what is an ideal size? Because everybody will give you a different idea. Some people will say 500 homes. Some people will say 5,000 homes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
The reality is there is no concrete answer because it depends on your budget and your strategies. If you're doing off market, it's better to start small again with the costs to scale up, especially if your budget is a concern for you. I'd rather see you do 500, 600,000 homes. If you're going online and you're not direct mailing stuff and you can reach people in a different way, you can go a little bit larger. But what I wouldn't do is go too big or take on too many areas. I've seen a lot of agents do that. They say, well, I want to do this neighborhood and this neighborhood and this neighborhood. I say, well, start with one neighborhood. Figure that out before you scale up. So ideally, if you're going to be doing a kind of a mixture of old school and new school, you're looking at between 500 and 2,000 homes would be a good area to start. But again, it depends on your experience and the budget and what you're going to do. If door knocking is your strategy and you're going to put that as one of your strategies, well, you're not going to door knock 5,000 homes regularly. So you got to take that in consideration. If you don't have a lot of money and you're going to mail out stuff, 5,000 homes probably isn't going to be a good fit. If you're just going to do the same postcard over and over and over again, you might have to do a bigger area to try to get enough people to get response from that. So I wish I had a magic here, that's the number, that's it, and that's all you got to worry about. But it also depends on location and where you're at and competition and things like that too.
Sure, absolutely. So let's take a broader look at things and say someone is fairly new in the business or they want to take their business to the next level. They want to start farming. Let's say 1,000 homes is a good start.
Yep.
Okay, reasonable, easy to manage, not too expensive from that point of view, and not doesn't take too much time if you're planning on calling or door knocking to
Yep.
sort of supplement that. What sort of messaging should you really put into, or before we get into that, let me take a step back, because we have to think about, okay, you've got 1,000 homes here. Turnover rate is an important factor. You want to look at turnover rate and you want to look at competition, right?
Those
So
are two numbers, yeah,
yeah,
that are important.
what are the things that people should consider when thinking about, I've got 1,000 homes in this area. Would it be a good idea or not?
Yeah. So the most common thing that has been taught is turnover rate. And the reality is that's an important number, but it's not the important number. And a lot of people have been preached that look for an area with a good turnover rate and a good price point. And that's kind of what they've been told to do. The reality is there are a lot of things to consider. And again, there's not a one size fits all approach. Turnover rate matters if that's all you're looking for is volume. But if you're looking for relationships, if you're looking for, you want to look at trends. Is this area becoming a hot area? Is it dying down? Are there people moving out of the area? Is there competition in the area? So how many agents are doing how many deals? Price point is important because depending on the price point, it's going to dictate kind of how you do your marketing. It's going to depend on the connections you've got. If I live in this neighborhood and I know everyone, that might be better to do an area that versus an area that has a high turnover rate. Another thing to consider also is the style of homes and then also the mix of homes. That's something I always tell agents to have if you're going to farm in the long term, I like to see a mix of price points and styles. So do you have condos, townhomes, semis, detached, and large executive homes? Because you're going to get people staying in the area, moving up, moving around, versus if you pick an area that's all executive homes, you kind of have like one shot where like you get them when they move in and you get them when they move out. So there's a lot of things to consider. If you're choosing an area, I wouldn't just focus on turnover rate because I did that myself. I picked an area, focused on high price point and high turnover rate, and I blew the farm because I didn't have a good marketing plan. I didn't know who was living in the area. I didn't know what I was going in after. There were a lot of people, English wasn't their first language, so it was difficult to communicate with people. So it was just on paper. It's like, yeah, good turnover rate. Yeah, higher price point. Awesome. So there's there's a lot of things you want to take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know when I focused on my farm area, I was thinking exactly that. I like to make sure that I'm hitting a good amount of starter homes
Yep.
and have them also be able to move up to those homes so you can move with them through the process. Like you
Yep.
said,
Exactly.
you've got several opportunities in that life cycle, right, of the
Yep.
client.
I want to go back to the turnover rate as well, because again, a lot of people look at a turnover rate that is low and think it's bad. And the reality is it can play a part of it. But I have a client who was one of my first coaching clients, and he picked an area that was turning over. So the area at that time was predominantly senior citizens who'd been in their homes for 30, 40, 50 years. It's got the ugly green shag carpet, the mint bathtubs, the pink dusty rose things. So they've been there for a long time. But he knew that the future trends of that was people were coming in, they were redeveloping that area, they were building these monster homes. There was a lot of younger people moving into that area. So if you looked at the turnover rate, it had like a 3.5% turnover rate. And if you went by most traditional coaches standards, they say, oh, don't farm an area that has 3.5% turnover rate. You need a 7, 8, 10% turnover rate. Well, he does 100K easily out of that farm over and over and over again because he picked an area. He knows he knows the market. He knows what he's doing as far as who he's targeting and the message he's done, and he's done really well with it. So if he looked at just the turnover rate, he would have missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So when you're looking at that, trends are very important, and knowing the area and understanding there are people that are going to be moving out soon. That's the bulk of the community. There's great
Yep.
opportunity there because a lot of people are probably overlooking it because they're just looking at those numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then also looking at like COVID, I wouldn't look at turnover rates for COVID right now because the last year has been such an anomaly. It doesn't matter. So you want to look at long-term trends as well and say what's happening in this area. There's an area in where I service, and it was a big family area. And about 20 years ago, a lot of families bought in that area, and then it slowed down because everyone stayed there. And then there's a new kind of reshuffling of people. Those families raise their kids, they're starting to move on, and now there's a whole new generation of people moving into this neighborhood. So if you saw the turnover rates, they were going down, and then all of a sudden they went like this because now everyone rediscovered that area. Opportunities started opening up. People started selling their homes, and it created a whole new opportunity for agents.
And if you've already established yourself there and created those relationships, then the business goes to you.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, great. Now we touched on it really quickly, but just to say, I mean, when we're looking at turnover rates, what you want to do is you want to look at the house count in the area versus how many homes have sold
Yep.
over several years. You'll start to see trends. The percentages they say, I guess, anything 5-6% and up is decent. Below 5, not so much. Again, just looking at those
Yep.
numbers.
Yep. So the turnover rate for the listeners, if they don't know, it's 12-month period divided by the number of homes. So the number of sales in a 12-month period divided by the number of home sales. So let's say you have 1,000 homes. There's 100 homes that have sold. That's a 10% turnover rate. If there's 50 homes, 5% turnover rate. Generally speaking, across Canada, I did the math on how many homes sold in Canada, how many homes there are in Canada. It's like 4.8% turnover rate. So on average, even if you look at most areas, are between about 4 and 8% turnover rate. But you might be living in the middle of nowhere where you don't have a high turnover rate because no one comes and goes. You stay there. So if that's your turnover rate, that's your turnover rate. Like people, and this is the issue I have when people say, "Oh, look for a 8, 9, 10% turnover rate." Well, if your area that you serve has a 3 or 4% turnover rate, that's what you're working with. Like you can't magically force people to move. If you could,
Right.
we'd all be rich because we force people to move and make a bunch of money. So just focusing on that is something I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket.
Absolutely, but it's good to understand, at least from
Yes,
a starting point, it is a
absolutely.
factor.
Yep.
Okay, now, question for you: when you're hitting those people, and let's say postcards are sort of tried and true, and it is one part of an approach.
Yep.
Um, Direct marketing or branding play. What would you suggest is the most effective way to go about it?
Sure. So I'm going to explain something that I teach all the time, and I call it scope. And I know you know it because you've been part of some of my courses and stuff. And scope stands for self promotion, prospecting, online, or sorry, self promotion, community, online prospecting, and education. And in order to reach the most amount of people and have the best balanced business, you need to make sure you've got a balance in your approaches. So traditional farming was self promotion. It was just getting your name out there. You send it out, send it on postcards, send it a billboard, put a billboard up, you put a park bench up, people know who you are. The reality is that only reaches a certain target or certain number of your audience, and only certain people are going to resonate with that. So you want to reach more people and catch their attention in different ways so they're seeing it. So then it's how do you get involved in the community? So can you get community events? Can you do community ambassador type stuff? Can you be involved with charities and organizations? What online are you doing? Are you doing social media? You're in Facebook groups? Do you have online ads that you're targeting? And then you want to prospect behind it as well. Can you do just listed just sold, doing open houses, doing things like that? And then you want to be educating. So in order to get the most out of your farm, you want to make sure you've got all of those things and not just the postcards. And does the traditional self-promotion work? Yes, but it's a lot less effective than it used to. So you want to make sure you've got more balance in there.
That's great to go on to the next thing, which is the messaging itself.
Yep.
So, I mean, what is the approach that one should take? Because we all get these postcards in our mailboxes, and usually it's look at me, I'm number one, or these are all the homes I've sold.
Yeah.
Like what do you think is the most effective approach?
So in my experience, in my personal opinion, my marketing is trying to get people to put their hand up and reach out to me, and so that I can connect with them past just pushing my message out there. And if you're just sending, I'm awesome, I just sold this home, again, you're only going to resonate with certain people. So you need to create opportunities and create value for people to say, hey, I want more information. I want to report. I want to get a newsletter that he's sending out. And you're getting people to put their hand up and request more information and want to be part of that. If you're just sending out, I'm awesome, people are going to tune out. You look like everyone else because that's what most agents do. They send out the same crap, their name and their face, or I'm awesome, I sell a bunch of houses, and you literally blend in. Like you're paying to blend in with everyone else. You should be standing out. So your approach should be to try to get people to put their hand up. And one of the things I believe firmly is that your farm really isn't the area you're focusing on. Your farm is the people who put their hand up. The intention of that farm that you're serving, the 2,000 homes, whatever you're focusing on, is to find the people who want more information from you, who want to hear from you. That's really your farm. So in our area, we had a farm of 3,600 homes. We had 450 people that got our monthly newsletter and our report. And those were the people we loved on. Those are the people we put all our attention onto. And all our job was to get the rest of the people to try to get them to put their hand up and find those people. And that's where you're going to see higher results. You're going to see a better turnover in your own business from those when you learn to get people to put their hand up. You can You can send stuff out over and over and over and over again, and it's just not going to resonate with a lot of people, and you're not going to see the same results if you can get them to engage with you.
Sure, absolutely. So with that whole scope approach,
Yep.
um, that's quite time intensive to be able to take it, from all these different, points of view, and really focus on giving value to the community and understanding what's happening around town, as well as
Yep.
actually running your business day to day. So how would you go about doing something like that? Or what if someone's listening and they want to do geographic farming, they want to incorporate that, but they don't necessarily think that they're the type of person to have their finger on the pulse of every single garage sale and farmers
Yeah.
market that's going to be happening in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
So I would say, how can you start tying some of those things together, or how can you leverage those other things? So again, the strategy stacking is something I teach. If you had a newsletter, you create a newsletter, well, you can highlight some of the garage sales in the area. You don't have to be part of it. You don't have to be running them. You don't have to be setting up organizations, but you could let people know there's something going on. Here's the 3 things that are happening this month in the community. Here's the school that's doing this play or this event that's going on. Then you can start tying things together. You can tie in local businesses. You can tie in self-promotion. You can tie in your listings. And when you start to tie those together, you're going to get a better response without having to do a bunch of things. You can use them to kind of layer it in and create a much more efficient business. I recently had a guy on the show. It's not released yet, but by the time this comes out, I think it will be released. And
Yeah.
he said he tried farming in the past and he had a couple things that he did. And he actually, once he layered them together, he doubled his return on his investment. He said he was getting about 10 times return on his investment, but now gets a 21 times return on his investment, because he said all those strategies started tying together. People started seeing his name. People started connecting the dots. People started finding him in different ways. So yes, it does take a lot of work and time, but if you do it, you can learn to be more efficient. You can start really tying those together and create a much more efficient approach. But it's going to take time or money. So.
Right, exactly. So you touched on ROI, return on investment. What is a typical or a decent goal to aim for your return on investment in
Yeah,
farming?
that's a great question. So my baseline, I always look at, what would I pay a referral fee of? If I was to pay, most agents, I can't say there's typical because there's no standard typical, but most agents would pay 25% for referral fee. So that's usually my baseline. Like if someone was to hand me a deal, I would pay 25% referral fee for a referral from someone, and then I try to beat that. Now, some strategies are going to be better. Some strategies are going to be not as good, but I like to get a 10 times return on my money if you can. If you can get higher than that, like when we did our newsletter, we started our farm, we spent about, I think it was $12,000 over the 15 months and made $235,000. So it was over 20 times return on our investment. There are some things that work better. There are some approaches where if I was just looking at that one approach going, man, I spent X amount of dollars and didn't get as much return on that. And there are certain things you can do that don't cost you hardly anything. You get a return. So you kind of want to look at the whole, but if you can get a 10 times return on your money, you're doing well.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about the sweat equity portion of it,
Sure.
rather than the check equity. So if people are allowed to and willing to go door to door or call people in their farm, what kind of approach should they be taking?
Perfect. So my approach is always, when it comes to farming, is again getting people to put their hand up. A lot of people go door to door and they're just prospecting, and they use that time as prospecting. You're missing so much more business when you're just prospecting. If you're just there going, hey, you think about buying or selling a home? Nope. Okay. If you need me, give me a call. You've missed so much opportunity. People aren't collecting information. They're not offering them something. They're not giving a reason for people to put their hand up, or they're not tying it together with something else. And this is where you can start to tie in some other things. So you could go out, you could prospect and say, hey, you think about making a move? And then you could also say, hey, by the way, there's an event going on in the community. There's a fundraiser that's going on, or I'm part of this thing. Just wanted to let you know about that. Well, now you've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You're already there anyways. If you're cold calling or door knocking, or if you're at an open house, you can leverage some of those things and tie them together. So if you're out and about, I'd be trying to get people's information, so I always say have something of value to offer, whether that's a report, a guide, free resources, giveaways, you've got a show, you've got a newsletter, something like that, where you're getting people to now put their hand up and request more information or stay in contact with them.
What do you think is something that most people see of value? Because people, they offer magnets, they offer cooking tips, whatever, like
Yeah.
anything under the sun. What have you seen to be the most effective?
Sales information is big. and the right sales information, not a report that says, there's been 6 homes that sold this much and this is the average price point. So they want to know what's going on. They want to be kept up to date on what's happening. So I use Agent Locator as my website, and they've got a nosy neighbor program where they can see as listings come on the market. Because for me, that's a huge value to my clients, because they get to see it, and it actually spurs on more deals. Because I've had a number of clients who get a listing and go, oh crap, well, if that sold for that, well, frig, I'll sell. If that's what the market is. So you're giving them something, you're educating them, and they will also return want to do business with you. Another thing is discounts and promotions. So if you're focusing on local businesses in the community, if you're partnering with certain people, you can then leverage those relationships to get more business from that and use those. Another great one is promotions and giveaways. So if you were promoting local businesses, if it was me, I'd be doing like a $50 a week or $25 a week gift card from businesses in the community, and having a weekly draw, getting people to sign up, get their information, because they want something and they're willing to give them information, but it has to be worth it. And I use the example all the time is, if I go to the store and you're in the checkout line, they say, well, just go online and fill out the survey for a chance to win 10% off, or for a chance to win something. Or they'd say, go online, fill this out, and you're going to get 10% off your next purchase. That's more likely because it's not a chance to win. Or I was at a KFC, and the guy said, hey, go online, fill out this form, or fill out the survey, and if you do it right now, I'll give you popcorn chicken. Well, I instantly go, okay, I'm going to get that. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to get popcorn chicken. For me, it was worth the 2 minutes to get a free thing of popcorn chicken, versus go online and for a chance to potentially win something, it's not worth it. So you have to think what's worth it, that the person that you're talking to is going to be willing to give up information, because they're trying to protect that. They're trying to hoard that and say, I don't want to give you my information because you're going to spam me, you're going to hound me and whatever. They want to know that it's a safe place to give, or you're a safe person to give it to, and there's going to be something of value in exchange for that. And so that's what you got to work with.
Rather than walking around with pockets full of popcorn chicken,
yes.
What would be a good example of that for somebody? Let's say they're door knocking in a neighborhood.
So again, a perfect example of that is, I wouldn't be going out saying, hey, I'm giving this away. You say, hey, if you want one of these or whatever it is, give me your information. So again, for us, it was a neighborhood home prices report. We showed what was happening in the neighborhood. We did a neighborhood newsletter. And we said, if you'd like to be kept up to date with what's happening in the market, we sent out a monthly report on all the home sales in the area. Would you like to get the information? And we got 25% consistently of the people we spoke with, we would get the report. After door knocking the whole neighborhood, we got 12% of the entire neighborhood on our report. It was easy, it was simple, it worked, and people wanted information. Then we started adding in other things. We started adding some giveaways and some businesses and things like that. So yeah, it comes down to what you're willing to do and what you're willing to give away. A lot of times people hoard a lot of information and hoard things and say, I don't want to give anything away. I don't have it in my budget. You gotta figure out what works. Another thing that I've done is I'm with Keller Williams, and we had a book for first-time home buyers. So we ran a promotion in the neighborhood saying, if you know anyone who's thinking about making a move, would like to get a free copy of this book. It was a $20 book. And they went online, filled it out. We had 22 people request a copy of that book. Well, now we know those people are thinking about making a move, or know someone who's thinking about making a move. It costs us $10 per book, so it costs us $210 for that, and we got 21 warm leads of people who are thinking about making a move. That's worth it for me.
So when someone fills out that form, their information with their address, phone number, name, email, something along those lines, yep. Do you hand deliver that to them? Do you send it to their door?
If you can. The hand delivery is, now COVID's a little bit trickier. In the last year, you probably may not have wanted to do that, but absolutely would drop it off in person and make that connection. Our reports, we used to do hard copy, so we would do a printed copy of it and we would drop them off and deliver the report so people could see us, connect with them, and then again, it creates conversation versus just mailing it out. Rob, who was talking about earlier, my friend who did that farm area, he mails his out. So he has his admin do it. She just mails out reports every month, and they get a hard copy of something, which is value to them, and they mail it out month after month after month, and he keeps getting good return on it.
There you go. That's the key. So you've got a course, and you mentioned it previously. Just tell everybody, all about that right now. And you go through, I was one of the guinea pigs to go through it. There's a tremendous value in there, and all the topics that we're covering, you can really dig deep into that. And I would 100% endorse it. I'm not, just to put it out there, I'm not getting any money from you to say that or anything. I just think that there's tremendous value in there to be had. So thank you for putting that together. But tell
Yeah.
everybody a little bit more about kind of the course and how it breaks down and what people get when they go through it.
Sure. So the program you're talking about is my boot camp. It's an 8-week program. We go through, it's a live call each week. It's a small group of agents. We go through a bunch of different strategies. So we talk about scope, and then we talk about how to layer in these strategies. So there's about 15 different strategies over the course of the 8 weeks. And we dive into, and all of the strategies can be layered on top of each other. It's kind of like a menu of things you can do. I know, and I've done the boot camp 6 times, and no one's been able to do all of them because it's a lot of stuff to implement. So it's really giving you a ton of ideas, and you can then go back and say, okay, what do I want? What's going to work for me? What's going to work within my budget and the time commitment that I've got? And you can then start layering in these approaches. The good thing is I designed it to be COVID friendly, cost friendly, and that it, again, the strategies start to layer together and really build off each other. And it's again, it's once a week for 8 weeks. The next one starts in July 8th, and I run them about every 2 months, so people can, if they miss the next one, they can jump in. I've got another program as well. If you've never farmed before, it's called my 30-day launch program, and it's 30 videos over 30 days, and it's designed for people who've never farmed before or who want to start a farm. And it's a video per day, and then there's homework each day. So it's about 12 hours worth of video over the 30 days. So it's about a half an hour, give or take, each day. And it's designed to, first week we go through all the numbers that you need to go through. You do your research for your area. You find a couple areas, and I've got a sheets for each thing you go through, and you kind of work out the homework and the numbers. And then the next week we go through the value adds. So what value you're going to add to your business, how you're going to create some value. Then we go through marketing and your branding, and then we go through administrative stuff, and then tie it all together. So at the end of the 30 days, you've got yourself a farm. You've hopefully picked it because you didn't get cold feet and backed out. You've selected the right farm. You're comfortable with it. You've got the resources and ready to go. And that's meant for agents who are kind of getting started and looking to actually launch a farm.
Perfect. So I would encourage everybody to go and check out one of those two, if not both of those programs.
Yep.
Let's give some value here, and let's paint a picture. Let's create an avatar of Agent A.
Yeah.
And Agent A is just getting started in farming. And let's take them through the process of, the idea of selecting 1,000 homes for a farm, and what might be step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for them to follow to get it up and running and successful.
Yeah. So always start with your budget. That's the first step when you're choosing a farm, is you need to know what you're working with financially and time. Because if you don't have a budget in mind, you're not going to be committing to it, and you're going to blow through your money, or you're going to blow through your time, or you're not going to be committed in the long run. A farm is just like a real farm in that you don't just plant a seed and then come back tomorrow and expect harvest to be there. It takes work, it takes time, it takes resources. So you have to have your budget and know, okay, how much time am I committing to doing this? How much money am I going to commit to doing this? And how much energy am I going to commit to putting into this? And I mentioned the energy part because it's important, because a lot of agents miss that, where I talk about energy in what I teach about is, do I like doing what I'm going to do? If I hate doing it, like I don't like cold calling. I'll happily door knock. I don't mind doing open houses, but if I had to choose one, I'd rather door knock than cold call. And if I had to continually cold call, it's going to zap my energy. Another agent loves cold calling, that fills their energy, and it doesn't zap their energy. You have to find some strategies that are going to work with what you like, what you're going to enjoy, and you're going to be committed to doing it. So you need to have your plan in place of how much money you're going to spend, how much time you're going to spend. Then you obviously need to choose what area. Sometimes the two kind of go hand in hand, depending on the time and the money. You may have a smaller area that's, okay, that fits my budget, or maybe this area doesn't fit my budget, so you may have to adjust. Then you're going to need to decide what kind of key pillars you're going to use as far as your strategies. You need to figure those out. So whether, even if you just get started, whether it's focusing on local businesses, doing postcards, doing door knocking, doing online, you need to have a couple of those in place, because again, it comes back to your budget. You need to know how much you're going to be spending, how much time you're going to be spending, and then you need to start executing on that. And if you don't do that and you dabble in it, you're going to fail. And then you need to commit to it and stick with it, because a lot of agents talk to me and they'll say, I tried farming once. I tried farming 5 years ago. I tried farming 3 years ago. And then I dig a little deeper and they say, well, I sent out a postcard and got nothing. I said, well, that's not farming. That's attempted marketing. Like, that's not farming. It's there's a commitment, and you need to see the results. Just like I don't plant a seed, water it once, and then go, oh, farming doesn't work. So you have to be committed to it and then really stick with it. And then you have to then test. I just talked about earlier, using your area as kind of a testing grounds. The mistake that a lot of agents make when they get started in farming is they don't test what they're doing, and they heard something or they got a sweet idea, and then they just go out and they spend an entire year's budget buying this postcard, and they go, I'm going to send the same postcard. It's like, have you even tested it? Did you get a response from it? Does anyone even do anything with it? Do you have systems in place to follow up once you get that? So you need to really figure out those moving parts and use that as your testing grounds. And you can't be afraid to fail, and you can't be afraid to try things. And that's the mistake that a lot of agents make, is they do it, they hit a roadblock in their farm and they go, oh, I don't like farming, it didn't work, and then they just give up on it. If you're committed to doing that, committing to testing, but committed to sticking with it, you'll start to see results.
And you say about a year is what you should commit to.
Yeah, and I want to preface that because a lot of agents have heard, I'm sure like yourself, you've been around long enough to have heard that agents have been told that it takes 6 to 18 months before you start to see results from your farm. And that's true if you're doing just old school strategies. Like you could do things and literally get results in 2 months, in a month. I had someone just recently go through my boot camp. And within 2 weeks, they followed the strategies that I started in week 1. And within 2 weeks, they got a lead. And within 3 weeks, they did their first deal. So you can speed up the process. It's just, you got to be committed to it. Now, I wouldn't be doing something for 2 years and never getting a result, because then you may want to relook and go, is this working? But you got to be committed to, okay, it's going to take some time, and then it starts to build on itself. And again, the agents who have done incredibly well with their farming have told you, it's like, yeah, it takes 3-4 years where those roots really start to grow on the farm, and then it just takes off. Like I had a number of people on my show who have farmed for 3-4 years, and it's like they went from 5-10 deals in their farm to 30, 40, 50 deals in their farm, because it's that consistency and that time. And really, not everyone's going to be moving. So there's only going to, like, you may have had someone in your farm who was committed to working with you, and then you pulled out on it, and then 2 years later they would have used you, but you're not farming it anymore. So you have to stick with it.
I think what needs to be said is that, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but it's not how many deals you've done and how quickly you've done the deals. It's, are people responding to your messaging?
Yeah.
Are people opting into whatever value you're offering? And if they're interacting with your messages, whether that's face to face or being sent by mail or whatever, that's the key, right? And that's how you can judge, all right, I'm starting to get some traction here. Not, I haven't sold any homes yet. All these people are contacting me. You need to know, is there some sort of response, right? And
exactly. And then going back to that, what I said originally at the beginning, the CPR, everything you do should be looked through that filter of going, okay, how is this helping the community grow the community? Is this helping me in the positioning? Is it elevating me as an expert? Is it elevating me as an ambassador? And is it furthering and strengthening those relationships? Everything you do should be gone back through that and say, okay, is it growing it? Am I connecting, and am I building relationships? And if you do that, you're going to start to see better results. If you're just going back, and I use that as kind of like my litmus test. If you go back and use postcards as an example, of old school postcards of I'm awesome, does it build a community? Not really. It may tie to the community because you're doing it in the community. Is it positioning you as an expert? A little bit, because people may have seen, okay, he's selling homes. But is it positioning you as the ambassador? No, because they don't think or know that you care about the community. And is it really building relationships? No, it's you just pushing your message out. Right. So for me, if I was to go back and say, okay, does it check each one of those boxes? Okay, now if you do that, plus you add in some other things, plus the other things, then you can elevate what you're doing. You may do postcards and community events, and then together that's going to help raise the bar for what you're working on.
Exactly. And ultimately, like how we started this conversation, it all comes down to what you're willing to do. Be true to yourself, your personality. What are you willing to do within that? Because like you said, if you want to, it doesn't matter if you want to door knock, if you want to cold call, if you want to do events, whatever, there's a million different ways to pull people in. But you have to decide what's going to be, not energy draining,
exactly,
rather energizing.
Yep, exactly.
Consistently.
And then you'll enjoy it that much more. And then people will resonate with you and connect with you. If you're into pets, you could create a whole campaign and marketing and events around pets. There's got to be a strong pet community in your area, and you can connect with people who are going to be on the same page and enjoy the same things. Or if you're into outdoors, and you can be doing that. Or if you're a mom and you've got kids in the school, and if you build your business around that. Or if you're a young professional or a young family, like you can match the business to match the things you're into. I will also say there are things you may have to do that may not be fun and sexy to do, but it's like you're gonna need to do it as well. Like you're gonna have to put some time in, and it shouldn't be all roses, but it's you still should be enjoying your business. And if you hate it, you want to look at your strategies.
Yes, exactly. All right, awesome. Listen, I appreciate you coming on the show and taking your time and sharing all this knowledge with us. Is there anything that you want to drop to them at the end, just to say, you know, do this, don't do that? Anything that comes to mind?
Sure.
Don't listen to this any more episodes of this show, obviously. No.
Listen to my show and not yours. Don't know.
Exactly.
No, I would say honestly is start with your budget, get a plan in mind, and don't be afraid to start, because just like regular seeds, just like regular garden, the longer you take to plant it, the longer it's going to take to see those results. And if you keep delaying it, it's going to take longer to do that. And I'd rather see you get in there and fail and learn, because I tried 3 different farms before I succeeded. I had to go through that to learn what worked, what didn't work. Obviously, using programs like mine can help you speed up the process so you don't have to fail as much, but you need to get started. And if you don't start, you're not going to see the results, and someone else will. You may have that dream farm in your mind and go, oh, I'd love to do that. And a year from now, someone else has already been farming it for a year, and you've lost that traction. So get out there and start, just start messing around, just start testing things. And then it's better to do that than to do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, how can people get in touch if they want to learn more about your programs?
Awesome. You can go to launchyourfarm.com. You can find my show on there. So I've got a bunch of different guests. I'm at 30 or 40 something episodes at this point. You can find out more about the courses, and I have a blog. I do a weekly blog and training. So a bunch of resources and information you can check out there and get more information about farming. If it's something you're excited about, reach out to me. I'm easy to connect with and easy to find.
Ryan Smith, the Geographic Farming king of the world.
Or one farm at a time.
Yeah, one farm at a time.
King of the farm. Yeah.
King of the farm. All right. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Awesome. Appreciate it.